All right, and here we are. Welcome back to the Evolve Sales Leader. I'm your host, Jonathan Fisher. In today's live edition of the podcast, we'll be talking about mastering the fast start. How long from day one should it take a new sales rep to ramp up and knock it out of the park? Weeks? Months? Why does it matter? And what can sales professionals do to optimize it? Well, today we have with us a bona fide sales expert, Mr. Bill Stinnett, the founder and president of Sales Excellence Incorporated. For over 20 years, Bill and his team at Sales Excellence have helped some of the world's most highly regarded companies get even better by sharpening every aspect of their sales, from hiring and training to process and skills development. Bill is also a multiple best-selling author of such titles as Think Like Your Customer, Selling Results, and the not yet published The Digital Selling Handbook, due out before the end of the year. And by the way, Bill is giving away a free chapter of the book to all of today's live attendees, so stay tuned for details here a little bit later on. Bill Stinnett, fantastic to have you on the Evolve Sales Leader with us today.
So glad to be here, Jonathan. Thanks a lot for inviting me. Can't wait to get this conversation started.
All right, well, let's jump right in. We're talking about mastering the fast start, the ramp up, you know, a brand new SDR or sales pro from day one to, well, when should they be really great at their job, right? Why does that matter is my first question to you. What are the factors involved with a ramp up?
Well, when you say why does it matter, this might be completely obvious to everyone, but let's just take it as a question that I think has merit. One of the reasons it matters, of course, is we make a tremendous investment when we hire somebody. And we'd like to see a return on that investment, and we'd like to see that return sooner than later. But one of the other reasons I think it's so crucial that we minimize that or truncate that ramp to volume or that ramp to plan is that we need them to be successful. Because in today's market, with how challenging it is to hire good people, people need to feel confident that they can come to work there, that they can in fact succeed and get up to the level that they're going to be expected to perform at. And if they're seeing other people doing it, they experience themselves, they're probably more likely to stick around too.
Yeah, these are huge factors in the success of every individual pro, but the overall success of your team as well. So how are tech company founders and sales leaders across the board getting this piece wrong as you see it?
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that's happening, I use this little phrase frequently, I think that we need to be working just as hard to keep our good people as our competitors are working to steal them. So there are a variety of factors, I think, that make a sales job or a position somewhat undesirable. Let's talk about a couple of those. One would be probably Big Brother looking over your shoulder constantly and micromanagement. No sales guys like that. Another one would be probably no really good onboarding plan. So I'll get into this in just a few minutes, but we leave salespeople really floundering to kind of put their own plan together and organize their resources and so forth to be successful. I would also say that we hire people and we don't really put enough energy into making sure that they're successful, as I said, in as short a time as possible, which has to do with the resources that we provide to them. And I'm going to share with the group today, as we talk this through, some of the things that we need to make available to a new salesperson or for any salesperson on the team to give them the best chance to get up to speed as they possibly can.
I love that. So before we get into the details of how to fix it, why do you think that sales leaders and professionals are making these mistakes?
Well, probably just habit more than many other thing. I would say that over the years, I've observed that a common MO for many companies is let's bring on 5 sales guys, see which of them can hit their number, keep the one that does hit his number and fire the other 4 and hire 5 more. And so we kind of wash through thinking, putting all the onus on the sales professional themselves to figure out how to make themselves successful, or a lot of the onus on them. And so we kind of see who survives it and who doesn't. And I think one of the things that companies are going to be forced to do is to think a little bit more diligently about how can we ensure their success going forward, just because it's becoming so difficult to attract and retain the right kind of talent right now.
And it is a very interesting environment in terms of talent. The really good people have headhunters after them all the time. So I think you're really on point with this issue of taking care of the team that you have. So Another question I have for you, just as more broadly speaking, you read around in different surveys that have been done, the research that's out there, and how long should the ramp up take? The answers are all over the map. I've seen 3 weeks, 3 months. I've seen 9, 10 months on average. There are a lot of factors involved there. What are your thoughts on that? How long should it take, and what are the factors involved that help to determine that?
Yeah. So probably one of the number one factors, as you call it, that goes into determining how soon somebody can be successful is the average length of your sales cycle. And that varies based on a few different things, the size or the complexity of what you offer to your clients, the nature of that product and or service. Some things can be sold very quickly. Other things take months of due diligence, for example, for customers to make their buying decision. Larger investments tend to take longer than smaller investments. And so there are a number of different factors that determine that, but the length of the sales cycle is crucial. As you might imagine, if the average length of sales cycle is 9 months long, then you're probably not going to have somebody that starts and in 6 months they're at plan. They didn't have time to find business and bring it to closure in that time frame. And of course, reducing or minimizing that length of average sales cycle is one of the objectives that would be done here. But it does vary greatly. My thought is that the more we can help to create that ramp and that onboarding process, we can shorten that time and get to volume and get to that return on investment all the more quickly.
Yeah, there's a lot of your insights that I want to squeeze you for today. So, without further ado, why don't we jump into that? What are some of the key factors that you've seen have worked with your clients, and you've worked with Fortune 500 clients and in very varied sectors in terms of what industry they're working in. So, what are your insights on this? And maybe you can share some case studies along the way, Bill.
Yeah, good question. So I actually printed something out before we joined the show today. It's just a little checklist that I've been using for a lot of years. I call this the Sales Excellence Readiness Checklist. Now, Sales Excellence just be the name of our company, so I called it that. But the idea of a readiness checklist is, what are the things that you need to provide to a new salesperson, or as I said, even somebody that's been on the team a while? What do they need to have foundationally in terms of resources, and as I like to think of as sales assets, so that they can go out and be as successful as soon as they can possibly be? Now, one of the things, of course, that immediately comes to mind is the technology that we provide to a salesperson, or they call a tech stack, right? Are we giving them a CRM system? Are we giving them a means to go out and find people's names and email addresses and phone numbers? Or are they having to do that research on their own? Are we giving them different kinds of communication tools, ways to automate, let's say, their email outreach, et cetera? So technology is a factor. But I think one of the areas that companies are missing it the most is they're not providing the raw material or the assets, as I said, I like to call them, that salespeople can start to put to use immediately. Do you want me to give a couple examples?
Please.
Okay. So right from this little checklist here, and I'm going to make this available to anybody that wants a copy of this before the end of our session here. Number one, it says this: a list of the top 5 or 6 business problems that you can solve or results that you can deliver for each industry or customer type that you sell to. Now, we think we do that because when we bring on a new salesperson, we put them through some kind of an onboarding training. A lot of times that's very technology specific. And while we might talk about the features and functions of the technology, what we don't always do is take that one step further, kind of the last mile, and explain, here are the problems that this particular product solves. Here are the outcomes that this will help our clients to achieve. Right down to literally, we're going to change this measure by this much over this period of time, and back this up with some kind of evidence based on what we've done for existing clients, or we've done surveys, or what have you with our customers. Arming people with that kind of knowledge that they can then go out and tell the story to their prospective clients. If we don't give them the raw material and the assets to do that, then we're kind of leaving them on their own, and that's why maybe 3 or 4 out of 5 don't make it.
That makes so much sense, and I've seen it an awful lot where we've talked about it a lot on this show as well, where there's a lot of focus on, here's our solution, here are all the fancy bells and whistles, here's how our software as a service can do this, or this. But we're not really connecting to the dot that it's solving a problem. And many years ago, Jay Abraham told us all that you're going to get a 9 times more likelihood of a buy based on solving a problem as opposed to here's a benefit you can gain. So there's a real need there for that. I love that. How do you do that? Like, what are some examples where you've helped your clients put together assets to tell this story?
Yeah, this is good. So I'm surprised it's only 9 times more likely. To me, it would be more like 100 times more likely than just
Right.
talking about features and functions. I think that's probably more so today than ever because there are so many different channels and people are being marketed to from so many different directions that we've become literally numb to product features and functions. It's not something that even registers in people's minds anymore, I think. And so I think the number one way to sell problems you can solve and results you can deliver is to do a better job of documenting what you've already done for your existing clients. And let me give you a case in point. So just earlier this afternoon, I was working with one of my clients, small sales team, but they sell nationally and they sell big ticket stuff to all different kinds of companies and municipalities. One of the things that we were talking about was prospecting and reaching out to find new clients. And so one gentleman had identified a specific kind of a organization within a city government that he thought would be ideal for what they provide. And so he had a huge list of all the cities throughout his section of California that he was going to approach. And I simply asked the question, well, what are you going to say to him when you call? He said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, what are you going to talk about? He's like, well, I'm going to talk about our products and services, of course. I said, but can you give them any examples about how you've helped someone else like them to solve a specific problem or achieve a specific outcome or result? Do you have any case studies, any use cases, any kind of a business case, or even just a story that you can tell about this? His response was, well, I think I've got one customer, in that space that has bought from us for a few years, but I haven't talked to him in a while. And so as we queried into this a little bit, it became obvious that when he calls these new prospective clients, all he's going to be able to talk about is himself, because he doesn't know how even that one existing client is using his product to actually improve their business performance. So how can he possibly give examples or share what he might be able to do for the new client if he doesn't even know what he's been doing for the existing clients that he has, all one of them?
Yeah. So that's really good. Do you recommend that companies have somebody that's tasked with that specifically? For example, maybe that's something for the marketing director to be on top of, or how can that be implemented?
So I don't see anything wrong with making a marketing person responsible for this, but I would actually make the individual account owners foster that relationship and start that conversation and have that discussion. And there are a couple reasons for doing that. Number one, when you go back to an existing client to see how they're doing, it almost always reveals another sales opportunity. True. And so to send a marketing person in there to have that discussion, to me, probably we're going to miss that additional sales opportunity. But the other one is that we probably want the salesperson themselves to hear it from the horse's mouth, exactly where they started. I like to call it point A. It's the problem they started with. Point C, the goal or objective they tried to achieve, and what they did along the way at point B. What did they buy or implement and use from us that took them from where they are at point A all the way to point C, their desired result? When that conversation becomes something that the salesperson has with the customer and they get to ask questions and so forth, this does it's tremendous confidence builder. And then the likelihood of them being able to go out and talk to the next client and relate this. I met with another CIO yesterday who said this, and this. What do you think about that, Mr. Johnson? So it's not just documenting these things, maybe and put them in a written form on some sort of a database someplace. I want salespeople to hear it with their ears and get it in their heart that they can walk into that next conversation with some confidence, knowing we help these other guys. I think we can help you too.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, there's no doubt that there's going to be a tremendous energy from coming out of a conversation like that, and one sale is going to almost invariably lead to the next. I do love that. So,
indeed,
creating the gathering the data is a big part of it. Is there are there ways to deliver it that are more effective than others? Like, is this something that should just be shared in the sales meetings? Is it worth actually spending some decent money and actually creating some polished assets that tell the story, a combination? What are some other best practices for deploying on this?
Yeah, really good question. So there is nothing wrong, of course, with, as you said, spending some money and turning something like that into a really nice glossy brochure or maybe a beautifully produced video or something featuring a client, telling about the relationship we have with them, promoting that, pushing on a website, maybe up on a YouTube channel, etc. But in today's marketplace, people tend to actually gravitate toward and somehow relate more to things that are a little less polished than that. And so a simple telephone video with you and your client saying, hey, I'm here today with Bob Smith, and Bob and I were just walking through his factory. And Bob, why don't you tell him what we've been doing together over the last 4 months? And now we're talking into this video here, and I just post that thing up on LinkedIn. People love that kind of impromptu, informal thing these days, probably more than they like the highly polished. And so I would encourage you and all salespeople to just start telling the stories and share this in emails that we send and short messages we send on LinkedIn and in impromptu videos like that we share. Figure out a way to make this become more of a conversation as opposed to like an advertisement, if you will.
Yeah, what I'm hearing you is these companies need to empower their reps to leverage their personal brand and help tell the story. I think there's a lot of power behind that. So let's bring it back to sort of this. Let's bring it back to the new hire. He or she is newly part of the team, and they're not yet part of those conversations. But this is helping create an environment. What are some ways to connect those dots really effectively in training or managing, or like what are some of the best practices around that side of it?
Good question. So I'll just give you a couple examples from my own experience. I was hired by a great sales manager in about 97, I believe it was. And one of the things that was great about him is that when I went to work there, I spent the first 2 weeks just riding along with him, out seeing clients for the territory that I was now responsible for. So he came with me. We rode around. He introduced me to people that he knew. It was actually his territory prior to me moving up to vice president. I took over his territory. So as part of kind of the handoff process, we went around and we visited a couple of dozen clients over those couple of weeks. That was a beautiful way to get me a chance to see the customers, to have a conversation with them, to learn how they were using our technology, et cetera. I used that so effectively there in that setting that a couple of years later, when I went to a different company and wasn't afforded that same opportunity, I took the initiative to go to my manager and ask, could I ride along with some of the other salespeople just to go see their clients and learn and listen and walk through the plant and just get a feel for how they were using our stuff. Nothing beats getting a chance to hear the customer talk about what they're deriving in terms of benefit, as opposed to, as I said, reading it on a brochure or some sort of a video.
I love that. And that speaks to the side where the professional, him or herself, takes the initiative, takes full ownership that they are a corporation of one within their company, even though they're employed.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in that intrapreneurship or business within a business kind of concept or model. I think that to stand out in today's marketplace, if we behave just like we're one of the sales reps, then our customers will only ever see us as one of the sales reps. And so it just really is a different level of interest that you take when you decide this patch of ground or this vertical market or these 25 named accounts, this is my business. And go out to seek to understand the customer and the market in that, so you know how to position what you offer to solve specific problems. As I heard one marketing expert say a couple of months ago, I love this. He said, every question that you have about what to sell and how to sell it and how you should package it and how you should develop it next time, the answer to every one of those questions, your customer already knows the answer. It's just a matter of going and having the conversation and finding out what the answer is.
That's good.
So many times we take it the other way around, right? I've got this product for sale. Who wants to buy it? Sometimes we need to go out and find out what the customer needs and wants and then bring the solution to fit that.
Yeah, and track it carefully so you have it for the next conversation.
Exactly, right.
So great conversation around the whole asset building side of it. What about this other side of it where there are efforts that need to be made? You spoke about that there's not enough effort being focused on retaining. The headhunters are out there. They're getting the messages on LinkedIn. They're getting the unsolicited emails, the really good people, the one that, she was your award winner the last 3 quarters. They're going after her. So what do you need to do as a manager and a sales leader to better retain your best people?
Well, there are a few things that I hear directly from the mouths of the salespeople that I work with, and I work with thousands of them. What I hear, of course, is crazy amounts of overhead, meaning I've got everything to do except go see customers. I've got spreadsheets to fill out and meetings to attend and databases to update, et cetera, et cetera. My thinking is if you're going to pay somebody $100,000 or $200,000 a year to sell, why in the world would you only give them 8 or 10 hours a week to do the selling and bury them with a bunch of overhead all the rest of the time? Now, I know the pushback is, gee, we can't afford support personnel, right? We need our sales guys to do this or that. But if you're really hiring good people, or as you said, the very best people on the team, the specialists, you wouldn't ask a medical specialist, for example, to handle all kinds of, taking blood pressure and taking people's temperature and stuff. You get somebody else to support that, a physician assistant, a nurse, somebody can support those things. But take that highly skilled expert that you have and put them on what they are best at doing. So overhead is one of them that I think is absolutely huge. Another one, it seems to me, is just opportunities to grow and to become better at their craft. The people who are already the best at what they do are the first ones to want to learn more and get even better.
True.
And so frequently as a sales trainer, I'm called and I'll hear from a sales manager, I've got a team of about 25 guys, but at least 10 of them are just not at all doing what I need them to do. I really need help with these 10. That's be fine. I'd love to help with the 10. But there's a chance that you're going to get your biggest return on investment from the top 5. If you'll invest in them and give them more opportunities. So that would be one of them, is just give them a obvious career growth path to pursue and just to expand their income circle or expand their responsibility circle. I think that it's not that much different than it ever was. People want a chance to contribute more and to accomplish more in their jobs. It's not always just about who has the highest base salary, at least in my opinion. I don't see that.
No, I think that's very true. Everyone wants to make a good income, of course, but there is a whole lot more to feeling like you are, that you're able to fulfill some of your more powerful abilities and exercise your talents, do what gives you joy and positive feedback when you do it in the workplace. Obviously, there's always going to be some amount of grunt work, but I love what you said there about minimizing that, what you called overhead. And let the sales pro go out and do what he does best. Make those connections, follow up those conversations, and help business leaders get out of their own way and make a great decision and buy the service or product that they should to get to those benefits. It's another good reason why so many very successful companies, they even divvy up the whole sales development piece itself, right? Get your SDRs out there grinding through, trying to get those initial touches to happen, get some calendars filled, and have the more seasoned and more highly trained individuals come behind that, work on developing that into true pipeline and closing of deals. It makes a lot of sense to specialize. How does this speak then to the ramp up? If we're going to commit ourselves as sales leaders to provide better assets, that's pretty good as long as we're connecting those dots. But how would you say the culture of trying to feed the eagles and starve the turkeys, like one of my mentors used to call it, how does that translate into creating a more effective and hopefully shorter ramp up for new hires on the team?
Yeah, so your new hires are naturally not your top performers out of the gate, right? Because they're brand new.
Right.
So all the more reason that I think we need to assess what makes our good people as good as they are. And almost without exception, what you're going to find is knowledge of the industry, knowledge of the customers themselves, the problems we're faced with. How do we position what we bring to market to solve those problems? And that's why so many of these things on this little preparedness checklist are so important. Let me give you another example here, can I? It says
Please.
A list of the top 6 to 12 diagnostic questions that you can use in either written or verbal communication to reveal or create new sales opportunities. Think about that. 6 to 12 diagnostic questions. I sometimes call these elevator questions. You remember the old phrase we used to hear at elevator pitch?
Right.
You jump onto an elevator, and what would you say at the customer in the 30 seconds it took to get to the 14th floor or whatever? I think that so many of our customers are so sick of that approach. What we really want to do is to create a dialogue and a conversation with clients. And so we need to be arming new people with what are the best practices in terms of the diagnostic questions that our very best salespeople are asking. So on this call we did earlier this afternoon, that's another topic that we discussed there. And what that team decided to do is they're going to collect 4, 5, or 6 good diagnostic questions, conversation starters, ways to get customers talking, and then just share that with the entire sales team so that we all have an additional arrow in our quiver or additional tool in our tool belt to use so that we can start more conversations. It's really a matter of kind of collecting some of that and then making sure that's available. There is no reason that a person should start at a company and work there 6 months before they learn how to create sales opportunities or how to generate something. We should be teaching them on day one. These are the questions you ask in this situation. When you go call on a bank, here are the 4 things you want to know. When you call on a retailer, here are the 3 things you're going to want to ask them about. We should make that just readily available day one. Here are your assets.
I love that. Keep going. Your list is solid gold, brother.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see what else is on here. Probing questions designed to determine what, if any, competitive advantage you have and to differentiate yourself against competitors. So the kinds of things that we can use to determine whether or not we're the best fit, how we might be somehow more uniquely qualified. Oh, here, I love this one. A list of the 6 or 8 most common non-price objections that they might expect to hear either on initial outreach or when closing an opportunity. Notice I said non-price objections because, of course, you're always going to get the objection around the price is too high. Right. But what are the other 6 or 8 things that customers tend to get hung up on? And how can we arm a new salesperson or any salesperson with 1 or 2 good responses to those top 6 or 8 questions? I think of this as literally teaching them kind of like self-defense. Remember that old movie Karate Kid? Remember that?
Yeah.
And the kid went to Mr. Miyagi to learn karate, and he said, first you got to do wax on and wax off. Remember that whole thing? Everybody remembers that, right? We need to teach people the moves and the counter moves and what to say when somebody addresses them or objects or offers this rebuttal and so forth. Never let them be surprised. And there's, no good reason why we should let everybody on a team learn that themselves. Why not arm them with those things when they come in day one so they can get ramped up even faster?
Yeah, I love that. That's really good stuff. Well, we want to make that list available to people, and if we'll work out something with you there, Bill, that we can maybe we can just post it or make it available to the folks that were on today's event with us live. So really good stuff on getting that ramp up to be optimized, some good gems here. I want to transition just a little bit. We promised to give away a free chapter of your new book. Now, this is obviously an on-point topic, the Digital Selling Handbook. I'm excited to get the whole thing, frankly. But let's maybe prime the pump a little bit on that topic, the digital selling. How are you defining that? We all have our own definition, but how do you tackle that?
Yeah, good question. So what I decided to do with this is to recognize, I'm going to just share the statistic that I kind of introduced in the first chapter that is mind-blowing, and that sets the stage for the whole discussion. So Gartner came out with some research recently that said that the average customer who is involved in a complex buying process, so this is buying something that's not just a widget, something that's a significant amount of money that has multiple people maybe involved in the decision process, that buying unit is spending as much as, I think the number was 84% of their time behind closed doors. In other words, only about 17% of their time are they actually spending talking to providers and suppliers and would-be vendors and so forth about the investment that they're going to make. So that means that if they're looking at maybe 3 different suppliers, vetting out 3 different ones, any one of us might only get 5 or 6% of that customer's attention throughout their entire buying process. That's incredible. But we know it's true. People tend to want to stalk companies, right? You want to go and look at their website. You want to check them out on LinkedIn. You want to go look at some star ratings on their website or on Yelp or on Amazon.com. We do a lot of this kind of research. Something like 27% of the time a company spends is in online research. 27% of the time, and only 5% talking to the provider or the vendor. It's mind-blowing. But here's what that says to me. If we're not using digital assets, like things in writing, audio, and video, if we're not using digital assets to continue to do some of the selling for us and continue to persuade and influence that buying process while we're not there, then we lose the ability to influence that process up maybe 94% of the time. I mean, that's mind-boggling to think how little access that we have. So the entire book is about how do you use digital assets not only to attract business, but to continue to work opportunities through the customer's buying process, whether they give us a chance to talk to them or not. We should be the ones that are putting up the YouTube videos that they're watching. We should be the ones that are providing the white papers that they're referencing, that are giving them the reasons to buy or not to buy, and creating these kind of assets that we can use for digital selling. That's what this book is about.
That's fantastic. Now, the chapter in question, we're gonna provide the link here in mere seconds. What's the topic of the chapter that you're giving away today?
Yeah, so the first chapter is called Selling the Way Customers Buy Today. And the entire premise is just simply understanding buyer behavior in a modern world. You know, we came through the whole lockdown experience over the last couple of years with some major changes in the way that customers are willing to engage with salespeople. I wish it wasn't true. I'd like to just deny it. I'd like to say, nothing's changed, just ring the phone.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you're right to ring the phone a lot these days to get anybody to pick it up. And even if they do pick it up, they're startled that you've called them. Old-fashioned cold calling and just sending out a zillion emails, the response rates on that has dropped off so substantially that I find that a lot of times it ends up being somewhat of a waste of time. And so this first chapter, really understanding the way that customers buy today, helps us to get in the mindset of, well, what should I be doing then? What should I be talking to them about? What can I provide to a customer before they ever meet me so that they could come to know, like, and trust me before they ever talk to me?
Love it.
We know this old adage, right? People buy from people they know, like, and trust.
Yeah.
Well, what if they won't even talk to us? How do we get them to know, like, and trust us?
Yeah.
That's where digital selling assets come in, and that's what the book's about.
That's huge. Rapport, defined as you stated it, is, according to Chet Holmes, one of my mentors, worked with him for years, 60% of every sale. So that's huge.
Yeah.
Well, I love it, Bill. We've just provided the link, and if someone happens to be listening and not watching, I'm going to give you that link just verbally. That is salesexcellence.com/handbook. I'll say it a second time. That's salesexcellence.com/handbook. When you get there, you can put in your information, get the free chapter downloaded, and we're still months away from the book even being published, so that's pretty cool. This is unique here, as far as I'm aware, Bill, right? The first time you've given away a chapter of your book before it was even published?
Yeah, this is the first time. And so that little on that little URL, salesexcellence.com/handbook, you go there and you can just enter your name and email so I know where to send this to you, and I'll send you the first chapter. But there's also buttons and links there if you want to pre-order the book. So anybody that just wants to get in line and get it pre-ordered on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, there will be links in there for that too. So I hope that you'll take me up on that. But I also want to make the point that this little checklist here that I've been reading from and talking about, a lot of people really like this. So if you go out there to the /handbook page and you complete that, you get your email, just hit reply to that email, and that'll come personally to me, bill@salesexcellence.com. And then I'll just attach this and send it right back to you. So we'll get to know each other across email as well. So I'm thrilled to share this first chapter with you and the introduction. I think you'll really like it a lot, and hopefully it'll make you be interested in buying the book as well. And I'd be really thrilled to put this little checklist in your hands, because this has helped a lot of my clients really better arm their salespeople to get ramped up much more quickly.
Well, Bill, it's been a thrill to have you with us for today's podcast episode. You're a fantastic guest. I would love to have you back again sometime soon.
Well, I'd be thrilled and honored to do it, sir.